So, now that you're going to go on to this LCF, you need to learn how to fire the guns that are on the LCF, which is 20mm Oerlikons and 40mm pom-poms.
Yeah.
So you head down to the south coast, or you go to this Ailing Island first.
Yeah, Ailing Island, where we get taught on a pier, one on the seaside, which I can't remember, because it was all seafit, and it belonged to the Navy or the Army. And on the end of the pier was about one Oerlikon and one pom-pom, which was a 40mm gun, and we learned to fire them there, because you could fire out to sea. Well, we used to fire at targets tagged by an old ship, fire the target behind it, or fire a drone at the back of an aeroplane. It was like a sock being pulled by an aeroplane, and you either hit it or you didn't, you know.
If anybody wants to know what a 40mm looks like, if you come and visit Dad, there's a big one right outside the entrance to where he lives.
Is it?
That's a big
a
pom-pom.
Beaufort.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're on the boat, either pom-poms or Oerlikons, and for some reason you ended up going on the Oerlikons.
Yeah.
And you
not
went
not
on
my choice, I just put on.
Yeah. And you went on to on the LCF in the Channel.
No, we went to Scotland to pick it up.
Oh, okay, Troon.
We went to Troon in Scotland, Ayrshire, and there we picked up an LCF, which was a landing craft flak. There was a landing craft flak and a landing craft gun. The one with the gun had the 4-inch guns on it for a bit longer range, and we had pom-poms and that for clearing on the beaches. And so that's where we went to Scotland to pick it up. And also, they made them up there in Scotland. It was a tank landing craft. There were lots of tank landing craft converted to rocket ships and all sorts, because they were just the right size, because they could go in onto a beach, and they were just big enough to manoeuvre around. So they blocked the front of the ramp. They put a deck in. So in the well, where the tanks would have been in the normal days, was our quarters, showers, cooking place, and showers and sleeping facilities, and a magazine. The magazine's where they keep all the light stuff, explosives. And on the top then was, I think there was 2 Oerlikons at the front, at the bow, 2 pom-poms, 2 4 Oerlikons to each side, then 2 pom-poms, then 2 Oerlikons at the rear.
And you were on S2, which was starboard.
S2, which was the second one back from the pom-pom. The other 2 didn't come in the numbers.
And you liked the Oerlikon, didn't you?
I loved it, yeah, I loved it. With it, you put your shoulders like shoulder things and a strap. You strap yourself in so you could lean back, and you could get in around. Torres, it was like that, but it got no topple back on it. And they're like steps, so you could come up steps or down steps, and the gun went up or down wherever you was.
So you used to load the magazine, which had about 60
rounds in, of 20 mil.
And you used to load them which way?
And you greased each one when you was loading. Not loading now, but when you're preparing it, and from the magazines up, before we was on action, you prepared all these magazines with the help of the people that sent them up. And you put 60 in, and then you've got a ratchet as a stand, and you put the ratchet on, you put 60 pounds pressure if you're going to use it. The ones on your guns would be on there, but the ones you would relax that off, probably to 50 or whatever, less than that.
So you used to load them with an armour piercing, an explosive, an incendiary.
Yeah, well the armour piercing you put on first, because on the end of the gun, being at sea, you put a thing called a tampon. But it was, on the big ships it was a big one, but on ours it's just a little plastic cup thing. Well, you didn't have time to get that off, the shell just blow it away. It's only very thin, not plastic, it was polythene or something, I don't know what they call it now. You could see through.
Yeah.
Looked like a little plastic medicine cup
Yeah.
on the end. So that went through, followed by an incendiary. So as it went through, it should have the incendiary which set things on fire, and did do. And behind that was your tracer.
Was there an explosive?
Yes, it exploded into flame,
Yeah.
fire.
Then the tracer.
But the tracer was so that you could see where your shells were going.
So when your first sort of action, when at some stage, the first time you ever fired at the enemy and the enemy fired at you, was some E-boats that came out of...
Yeah, well, we went down to them. We sailed down with a convoy of landing craft built in the Clyde, and there's more than us as LCFs and LC guns. We came down, and there was a big storm in the Irish Sea at the time, and we went into Holyhead for 3 or 4 days, and then come out, and then we went down past Southern Ireland. We saw these high-speed boats coming in. Never seen one before, of course I hadn't. None of the others had. They were E-boats. Were high-speed torpedo boats. And on them they would have a big gun, an 88mm or a 75, and all the guns the same as us.
So just for most people, the 88 was the big gun that the Germans had on their tank. Like the Panzer tanks.
Yeah, the same type of gun,
and probably the greatest gun of the Second World War. Really.
Yeah, modified, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so they got that on there, so they could blow you out of the water with one of them, because we couldn't match that, unlike what I was on. But we also had LCGs with us, which had 4-inch guns on. So they could fire at these E-boats, so that kept them from using that on us. So they tried to sneak in, lots of them, I don't know, probably half a dozen.
So did they come in a single line first and spread out?
Yeah, they spread out, all of a sudden they spread out, so you've lined up, and now suddenly you haven't got a line. They're everywhere. You've got to keep your eye dead straight. So you just have a few ones where I haven't seen it, but they tell me when an LCF fired all guns, it looked as though the ship was on fire to anybody else. So they backed off, gone. They was obviously operating from Ireland. Doesn't put that in because that's political.
Okay.
Well, that's political.
Yeah. So anyway, from
that
there...
must not go in.
Right. So anyway, so you went round to the Channel then?
So we went on down to the Channel. We pulled in round the English Channel with Falmouth. We went into some of them docks all the way along there in stages, dropping off tank landing craft and things for use of the army and that. Then Falmouth, Weymouth and Poole, Southampton, Portsmouth. And so we ended up, our base was in Southampton.
So from there you really then started to prepare for Normandy?
Well, yes, yeah. In between, there was convoys used to come in across from America.
Oh, that's right. You went to the Battle of the Atlantic first, didn't you?
Yeah, they come across from America and Canada, and obviously they're called what they call the Western approaches. That's when the Westerns was approaching, and those ships, merchant ships, were either going to Scotland, Northern Ireland, or
Liverpool and places.
Liverpool, and into the Channel to go to London. So going through the Channel was a pretty hazardous because these old ships could only do about 5 or 6 knots, some of them, very slow, and they had a gun on, but the men on them never trained on them, so I don't know they ever used them half the time, and they hadn't got an anti-aircraft gun like we had, or the skill probably our men had. So we were there, so when you come up to the opposite Dover, they're called the Hellfire Corner, it was hellfire.
So it's just Stukas and things
well,
like that.
Hellfire Corner, the British had a rail gun, and the Germans had rail guns on railway lines could fire shells 30, 40 miles, big things, you know. So anything in the channel they could hit if they wanted to. But they did. The Germans' main weapon was a Stuka dive bomber. A single engine, and it looked like, when they're coming over, they looked like mosquitoes. or dragonflies, because the wheels used to hang down, they didn't retract. It was just a basic aircraft, and the wings was like a gull shape, like bird wings. So, but they could dive at almost vertical. Almost. You can't go vertical, otherwise you would pop over. But almost vertical. Any aircraft that could do it. Well, they would either carry, some used to carry one big bomb.
500-pound bomb, I think, wasn't it?
Some used to carry two bombs. Some would carry four. No more than four. But it depended what mixture the Germans decided to use. They'd probably use some of each. So then you had to fire at them. There was no fire that one here, fire that. You just fired into them as they're coming down. Anything you could get at, you fired at. I mean, you couldn't say, well, I shot that down, because there was that much tracer bullets and shells in the sky. You wouldn't know where you should have gone.
Yeah, yeah. So after that episode, you then went to the last days of the Battle of the Atlantic.
So then, yeah, then we went back into operations, doing what they do. We could do help with landings at Slapton Sands, like American units or British. Slapton Sands was a village in the south coast that was taken over by the military. Taken over, all the residents was moved out. They were given other accommodation temporarily while the war was on, because the army used it for in-fighting in houses, and the navy used it for landing people, and the air force probably used it for low-level bombing and strafing with rockets. So everybody used it, and then sometimes they would have a combined operation of the Army, Navy and Air Force working together on this town, and on the big hills on each side would be all the bigwigs, we call them bigwigs, from Whitehall or America, watching. And then we used to go out and about to the Channel to practice for D-Day. That's what we were doing. Nobody knew when it was coming, but we knew by the lockdown in England, anything below the Midlands was a no-no without a pass. But then that got lower and lower and lower till we condensed right down to the very south coast. You had to have a pass to go in Portsmouth, Weymouth, Port, Southampton, special pass. You couldn't go in there. Nobody's allowed in. Nobody.
We've skipped a little bit about when you were in the Atlantic, in the last Battle of the Atlantic.
Oh, I haven't got there yet.
Oh, haven't you? Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I have. I should have done.
Yeah,
I have skipped it, yeah.
So, it was about May 1943.
I figure when that was, yeah.
And,
well, well, the Allies by then had got radar and ASDICs and all this stuff going, and that code thing, Vinci code or something, and they knew that the Germans we stopped there. They've done a big submarine called a supply submarine U-boat that used to take out to the smaller U-boats in opposite Newfoundland and that, because it's too far from them to come back and go back. They'd reload them, re-ammunition, food, so they could stay there. They're called a wolf pack. That's what they call them, a wolf pack. You've seen like a pack of wolves get onto something, the whole pack go in. Well, that's what they used to do to the convoys. So now they've been pushed back now, and there was the ports where they used to have what they call the pens, which my mate Len Lancaster would have known. There were concrete pens, and the submarines was inside them. They're subs, U-boats. So it's hard to bomb them. That's why they had a few raids, commando raids there. And